Hello, and welcome to Rolling Out Sisters with Superpowers. I'm your host, Portia Monique, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Melissa Ingram, who is the SVP of Multicultural Networks and Strategy at Up Entertainment. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you, Portia. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine as well. And it's such a joy to be speaking with you. You have such a storied background that I'd like for you to share with our audience. And if you would, take us back to the beginning of your journey and briefly walk us through how you became the SVP of Multicultural Networks and Strategy at Up Entertainment.
Oh, yes. Okay, where do I start, Portia? I think it's important to tell you a little bit about sort of who I am and my upbringing with two amazing parents, born and raised in Los Angeles, California. They are HBCU grads who instilled in my brother and I the importance of community, Black culture, the legacy of historically Black colleges and universities. And they honestly just wanted my brother and I to be the best versions of ourselves, to pursue our passion and to understand why we are put here on this earth, which honestly is to serve others, right? I tell people all the time, your passion is about you, your purpose is about others.
Mm.
And so really trying to identify early on, what is it that we were put here to do? So I started really honestly wanting to be an attorney from a very young age. I was one of those kids that planned everything out. I knew that I wanted to go to Spelman College. I knew that I wanted to go to UC Berkeley for law school after completing Spelman, and I wanted to go on to do entertainment law. And honestly, I say it to people all the time, God's plan and purpose for my life was much bigger than even what I had planned.
Mhm.
So after law school, I went on to do all of those things. I thought I was going to go back to LA and be an entertainment lawyer there, and that's where the industry was. And God said, "Nope, it's going to be Atlanta. This is
Mhm.
where your home is going to be, your next home." So I worked for what was at the time the largest Southeast law firm called Alston and Bird, doing labor and employment. I knew that I was still very passionate about entertainment and I wanted to break into that industry. And so I left after a couple of years and joined a small boutique, Black owned, female owned law firm by the name of the Carter Law Firm, which is now Woodward and Carter, which is the full first only Black full service, Black owned law firm here in Atlanta. And so I was under the tutelage of Yolanda Carter when I started working on a contract for what is now Up Entertainment, but then was Gospel Music Channel. My
Wow.
dad is a pastor, and I've always grown up in the church. And so there was just this affinity for gospel music that I had. And I leaned into that. And then an offer came for me to go in house and work for them full time. So I left my shingle hanging on that door with the Carter Law Firm, went in house, served as counsel, then senior counsel. And then in 2012, Mr. Johnson and Magic Johnson Enterprises partnered with Up Entertainment to launch what is now known as Aspire TV. He tapped my boss, who was the general counsel of Up at the time, to become the general manager of Aspire TV. And I simply followed him to run business and legal affairs. 2016, my boss, the GM of Aspire, decided to leave and pursue other opportunities. And shortly thereafter, I was tapped to run the business. And I was like, what? I was happy in my little bubble of just doing, business and legal affairs and going home to my family and being a wife and a mom and all of those things. But God, again, saw something greater. And I can tell you, I had no idea what I was doing. I had
Mhm.
studied my former boss, but I didn't know truly the investment in people, the investment in leadership that I was going to have to take in
Yeah.
order to be successful. And so 10 years later, after Aspire was launched, here we are today. And 2019, Mr. Johnson divested his interest. Aspire TV was fully purchased by Up TV, and we merged. And I was promoted to the SVP of Multicultural Networks and Strategy. So I continue to see the overday of Aspire TV, but I also am responsible for the multicultural growth of the audience all across all of Up Entertainment's platforms. So there is Cine Romantica, which is a fast channel. We just launched Aspire TV Life, which is a fast channel, a free advertising streaming television channel. We also have Up Faith and Family, which is also ran by a magnificent Black female, Angela Cannon, That is our subscription video on demand service. And then, of course, Up TV. So I am responsible for how are we talking to the multicultural audience across these platforms and how are we bringing them along the journey and meeting their needs. As
Yeah.
we know, representation is really big right now. It always has been big for people of color, but general market is now taking notice that representation matters.
Representation absolutely does matter. And thank you for all of your contributions that you're doing over at Aspire TV, over at Up Entertainment, all of that. And your story is so inspirational and aspirational. And so you truly set an example of who to look up to and what to do and the right things. And most importantly, I think, is writing that vision and making sure that you know the direction in which you want to go, because it will just simply manifest itself if you have it written down and
That's
you
it.
know you have that goal, you have that direction and everything that you want to do. So
That's it, Portia. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to you. And kudos to you.
Thank you for that. No, I tell people
Absolutely.
all the time, write it down, make it plain, and then pursue that, right? Faith without works is dead. Now, God is going to do something completely out below
God
your
is gonna do
mind,
what God
right?
is gonna do, right?
Right. But if you order your steps in that, knowing that, look, I knew early on that this is what I want to do. I feel like God, you have given me a gift. I want to gain the skill, right? And then God started making it clear, multicultural audiences, allowing Black people to see themselves be represented on television, right? Because when I got into this, it was a time when which still today, unfortunately, a lot of the top television shows don't necessarily have the best reflections of our culture. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to down that, but I think we are multifaceted people. We are not a monolith, right? I
Right.
mean, we live in different areas, we like different foods, but I think for audiences who do not live with us or who do not experience or have a Black friend, if that's all they see, they begin to assume that every person of color acts and behaves in a certain way.
Right.
And that's just not fair to our community. And so, it became very clear to me, okay, there is a purpose behind what I am doing at Aspire TV. And then we started hearing from people, oh, it's so uplifting. Oh, I love that I can see myself being I can love that I see my aesthetic in this home design show. I love that they look like me, but they're cooking, poached lobster, and like it's not chicken and waffles, but and that's
Right.
good too. But like I like to brunch, and I like my eggs over easy and not
Yeah.
scrambled hard all the time.
Right.
So it became very clear to me, like, wow, people are being moved by the content and the power of media, as you know, Portia, right?
Mhm.
The power that media has, and when people are actually seeing themselves being reflected in the highest light, man, you can't tell them anything. I see it in my daughter. She's 11. When she sees
Oh,
reflections of herself, when she sees, Amanda Gorman, at the inauguration, or even the latest show on Netflix with the girl has a bonnet, it's like,
mhm.
oh wow, I could do that too, even if it's our vice president,
Yeah.
right? She
Yeah.
sees a reflection of herself, and then that says to her, the psyche says, you can do this too. You can achieve this too. And so that's what I mean by just pursuing purpose and asking God, look, I'm gonna plan. This is my dream, but you make it to where the dream glorifies you and
Yeah.
where it's serving your people. And so I've just been blessed to be able to find that and to actually be on a day to day working in pursuit of that.
Absolutely. And speaking of day to day, what, in a practical sense, what are your day to day responsibilities? What do they look like as an SVP?
Yeah, so I sit on the executive team committee,
Mhm.
and there, I believe, are 7 of us that we meet daily. I mean, we have a longer weekly meeting on Mondays that takes about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, but on a day to day, we are meeting as a leadership team of the company to really understand and make sure we're aligned on all of the priorities. So I have a company priority that is assigned to me. These are generated on a quarterly basis. And so, I have my priority times and blocks in my schedule. And then, the rest of my day could be anywhere from, okay, I'm focused on the development of a new project and trying to meet with producers or taking pitches. Or the other time could be, I'm actually reviewing a cut of a new show and giving notes on that, or looking at a new promo and giving notes on that. And then I also have just time where I'm just reviewing data and trying to understand the performance of certain things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of everything, but I think the most important part of my day, I would say, is the way in which I started, which is aligning with the executive team, and making sure that we all are on the same page in terms of what are you working on today, what am I working on, and how do we move the business forward
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
SVP.
Yeah, very, very important for that touch point to happen on a daily basis, and your day-to-day changes, right? Like you said,
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm blessed to have a team too, Portia,
Yeah,
that, I don't have to micromanage, right? I trust
right.
that they are doing what they need to do. They may, of course, ping me if there's something that they feel like is out of their reach or touch, or hey, do you mind calling so and so? Because I am also working with talent quite a bit and
Mhm.
building those relationships. So sometimes talent isn't as responsive to some people. So it's like, hey, Melissa, do you mind reaching out and just helping us move things forward?
Yep,
Yep.
understand that completely.
Right. I knew you would. I knew you would catch that.
But that was a perfect segue, talking about your team and you trust them to do the job that you ask them to do. But I want to know on the other side of that, how do you inspire your team?
Oh yeah. So I have, and I've talked about it before in interviews. It's not my model. I cannot take credit for it. It's actually from a book that's called "What Great Leaders Know and Do," and it's SERVE, right? And so the acronym SERVE stands for S, See and Shape the Future, E, Engage and Develop Others, R, is reinvent continuously, right? Not just sort of just staying focused, but also thinking about what's changing and how do I reshape what I'm doing and who I am. V is valuing relationships and results, right? So thinking about the people aspect and not just saying, well, we got to hit this target, but you got to value the relationships and the people behind the work they're doing.
Mhm.
And then the final one is I'm sorry, and I've said this so many times, and it's like escaping me,
Okay.
is exemplifying the values, right? Living those out.
Mhm.
So the first E, which is really engaging and developing others, I really try to take the team around, like along with me when I'm developing vision, right? That it's not just my vision, but it becomes our vision. And
Mhm.
honestly, there are times when I have introduced something where the team has made it better, where they thought about it differently, and they're like, well, what about this? Or what about that? And so keeping them inspired is bringing them along, giving them the idea, allowing them the ability to make something better creatively, because honestly they are the heartbeat of Aspire and all of the brands, right? I'm just kind of a face. They are the real ones that are like day to day
On the word.
putting in passion and breathing life into this brand.
Mhm.
And then, we also have our check-ins just about culture, right? Like we spend a lot of time just talking about what's happening,
Mhm.
what's happening in our culture.
Mhm.
Trying to also inspire ourselves collectively, like, oh yeah, did you watch this? Did you see this? What about this show? Because I think when you have the opportunity to step outside of your day to day and just focus on like, oh, what about this show do I like? It just allows you to continuously be in a space of trying to be better and being inspired by other things, right? Because you
Mhm.
work in a bubble where you just have to sometimes rely upon inspiration in what you're doing. You can get burnt out really quickly.
Yeah.
So those are just a few things that I do,
Mhm.
right? I like to also have very transparent conversations with my team members, but you have to build trust and able to do that,
Yeah.
right? So if you do have somebody that eventually it's not working out or they aren't meeting the expectations, it shouldn't be a surprise to them, right? But I also am also studying them to understand, when have you reached your capacity
Mhm.
here? When
Mhm.
is it time for you to go flourish somewhere else? And so having those conversations, and if I can be of assistance in helping you move to your next, I want to do that.
Yeah.
But that requires it requires some time of just building trust where they can trust you and you can trust them, to have that relationship, to know that, look, when it gets to a point where you've reached your capacity, or your needs or the needs of the company are being met, that this will be an opportunity for me and for you to try to find what is the best suited position for you.
Yeah.
So that trust, sharing a vision, and definitely creativity and sort of the sharing of what's hot, what's not. I
Including,
think are
yeah.
three things. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that book. The title again, just
It's called, let me get it. It's called What Great Leaders Know and Do.
love it.
And it
And
is by Mark Miller.
okay, perfect. And in that same vein, with suggesting certain books that people must read, indispensable books, what would you say is perhaps another book that you can recommend that anyone, either on your team and someone interested in leadership, is a must read for them?
Yeah. Ooh, there are a lot. But I will
Yeah.
say, Rethink Again.
Mm,
That's by Adam Grant, and that's the power of knowing what you don't know.
mm,
I think is something that we actually collectively read as a company. But it suited me not only in sort of career wise, but personally, right? Like never assuming that you're right, but always seeking to sort of look at things from a different angle. So personally, right, it's helped me in my marriage and my relationships
oh, I
of
love that.
just
Yeah.
rethinking, right? Being
Mm,
in a state of always learning, which I think when you get to certain ages and certain statuses, you stop doing that, right? You want to be relying upon, I know what I know, what I know, what I know.
right.
But life isn't like that. And I think the most successful leaders are people who can constantly push themselves and ask people, I want to think differently. So ask me those hard questions. And I'm not going to be on the defense when you do. I welcome it because it's going to make me stop and pause and really think, have circumstances change where maybe I do need to rethink differently.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I also just read I've read it many years ago, but The Alchemist, I just
Oh,
think it's just
girl, I
always such an
love
inspire,
that book.
right?
Yes.
Like I just tell people like you need to read it like once a year, right? To
Yes.
be inspired.
Absolutely. I have
Yeah.
my boys read that book too. I have teenage boys, and actually, we listened to the audio version of it, and they were just as interested in it as I was. So,
Isn't that girl? Oh, I got
yeah.
to try the audio. I didn't think about that.
Mhm.
And I know there's also like versions for younger kids and stuff. So I
Yeah.
need to,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just think that's just such a powerful, and the
Yeah.
story of the author, right? That they didn't want to pick it up, right? That he was
Mhm.
shunned, like, no, this isn't, I don't know what you're talking about with this fable.
Right. Right.
And then it's gone on to, I mean,
Look at
it's
God.
over now. Right, right. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
there's so many books, but I would think those that's just what I've sort of read this year, and what's inspiring me for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, before we get out of time, I do want to
Yeah.
talk to you about your definition of success, right? So I love
Mm,
asking these questions to leaders and C-suites and entertainment all the way around. When it comes to success, there are so many varying different definitions, right? And so
yeah.
when you think of success for yourself, what does success mean to you? How do you define it? What does it look like for you?
So this goes back to Portia to what I said earlier about, passion being about you and purpose being about others.
Mhm.
And success for me, because I do believe success it can be defined, it is very individualistic, right? Everybody has their own definition of it. For me, it is defined as even if it's one person that I'm impacting and making a difference in their life by what I do, that is success.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
success for me. That it has less to do about what I've attained or any sort of accolade or acknowledgement.
Mhm.
But on a day to day, if I can look at my day and say, did somebody become better because of what I chose to do and pursue today?
Mhm.
Right? So it's this thinking of ourselves as it's larger than us,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That it's not about you and me. I like to tell people all the time, it ain't about you, sis. Like, when we get caught up in our head or, this, well, it ain't about you, right? It's about others. And so success for me is truly what is the impact that I am having, whether it be on a person or a community. It could be an employer for that day, right? I mean, an employee for that day. Like, who did I touch and who did I help in their pursuit of their purpose? It could be the community, it could be an audience member. Those for me really defines what success looks like for me.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
and I just, I for some people it's again it's different. I just know for me it's the impact that that means I am doing what I am called to do.
I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Couple more questions before we
Yeah.
get out of here. And in that same vein, with success in any industry, what would you say are three indispensable skills that you need to be successful, especially if you want to make it in a C-suite?
Mm, Um, servant leadership,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to serve people. Anything that you ask of somebody, you have to be willing to do yourself. I think, and there's a lot of characteristics that go under that, right? You could talk about empathy, you could talk about, but I think being in pursuit of becoming a servant leader is really, really important. I would say transparency.
Yeah.
Um, and this sort of goes along with servant leadership, but we talked about it with the Rethink Again book, is this sort of constant state of learning,
Mm-hmm.
being in a position to where you know what you know and know what you don't know, and you're constantly rethinking both of those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being in pursuit of just being lifelong learners. I think when I look at people who have been successful in C-suites, those are three things that I have identified that I really try to model myself. And
Mm-hmm.
like, ooh, okay, so I can look at certain people and say, you know what, you are successful because you possess this. And it usually is, you are a servant leader. You will not do anything that you have asked of anybody else. You will
Right.
do it yourself,
Right.
before you even ask somebody. You are transparent in the way in which you respond, knowing that I can't share everything, or that you can't share everything about the business, and but you are transparent, and to say, I don't know what I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or I
Mm-hmm.
can't answer that, but here's what I can tell you. And then three is, honestly, is I'm sorry, I just gave it to you. It is the sorry, it's one of those Mondays. The servant leaderships, the transparency, and then the lifelong pursuit of learning.
Lifelong pursuit of learning. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're winding down, but I got
Okay.
so many more questions. This is such a
Yes, I'm
great
having so, I
view.
know. I have a 12:35, and I'm like, why did
Okay,
they do
okay,
that
okay,
to me?
okay,
No, no,
okay.
no. I'm mad. I'm trying to like text and be like, can you move that back?
As an SVP, what's one model and motto and or statement that you live by?
Ooh. Uh in order to lead, you must serve.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this theme of servant leadership. It's ringing so true. So thank you so
Yeah, and a lot of people don't focus on that, right? Because it's not the sexy part, right?
much.
Of like literally putting others before yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what servant leadership requires of us, is
Yeah.
to understand the needs of those people who technically or by definition are supporting us, but to become support of them, right? So everybody that reports into me, I'm like, how can I serve you?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna, at the end of the day, you shine, I shine. Right?
Yeah.
You go on to do something great, that's success, right? And I don't have to take credit for it. I just know that I had a role in helping you become the best version of yourself, similar to what my parents did for my brother and I at very young
Yeah.
ages.
Love it,
Yeah.
love it. Okay, and as this is Sisters with Superpowers, if you had a superpower, what would you like for your superpower to be? And if you already
Ooh.
have one, what do you consider it to be?
Oh, I wish I had a superpower. Well, you know what? I will say this. I say this all the time, favor ain't fair. God's favor ain't fair. And so if I have a superpower, I'd say it's God's favor.
Listen,
I can't take credit
chill.
for it.
Listen, Melissa, I just wrote that in my journal last night,
Oh,
midnight. I can go get it and show it to you, but that's just confirmation.
formation. For sure. I got chills. I love when that happens. I
Yes.
love when that
Oh
happens.
my
When people
God.
tell me, or when I am talking to somebody and they confirm something and have no idea, favor ain't fair. And that is a superpower. That's
Sure.
that's the love of God, girl. So
Super
yes.
proud. Okay. We are at the end of this interview, but I know you guys have a lot of things going on
Yes,
at
yes, yes.
Aspire TV. Let's talk about this 10-year anniversary before we get out of here. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay. So 10 years. Oh man, there's been so much that has occurred in 10 years, and Aspire is walking in existence as the leader of Black lifestyle and culture. And we have 5 pillars, right? Eat, live, shop, play, and dream. We like to look at how the Black audience does those things. So we have some exciting stuff happening with Chef G. Garvin. We've got another cooking show that I can't say who the talent is, but it's dope, and that's going to be in production later this year. We're looking at the travel sector. We also have Just Angela, and so our sort of docu-series and Side by Side. And then we have so much going on, but the one thing that I'm most excited about, 2 things: Spire Marketplace, which is going into, I think we launched that in 2018, which is supporting Black-owned businesses, right? It was before buying Black was a trend, right? We really were just trying to create a support system for these Black-owned businesses, give them commercial time with their products, doing interviews in studio to help marketing as well for them. And we have great case studies around the success of that. And then we have a concept around what we're calling the Aspire TV Studios, where we're serving as an agency, creating ownership, as well as investment into content for Black content creators. So there's more that's coming around about that, but 10 years has never looked better. Still, our commitment to independent films and extending our partnership with Damn Right Originals, which is a screenwriting label based here in LA and Atlanta, and Nakia Stevens and the founder. So we're doing more short films, and still continuing to give a platform to the next generation of content creators and influencers. So who really are the influencers, who are the creators of today? I don't like to say tomorrow, because it's like these influencers are doing this stuff today. They're influencing the culture now, right?
Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Melissa.
Sure.
Yes, I got all the great feels and everything.
Me too.
Right, absolutely. Tell us where we can follow you, Aspire TV, all of the great things that you guys are doing over there, and how can we just keep up to date?
Yes. Okay. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Aspire TV, Aspire TV. And then on Twitter, it's TV Aspire, at TV Aspire. For me personally, at Melissa M. Ingram, that's my full name on Instagram and on Facebook as well. I'm not really that active on Twitter, but I actually gave up social media for Lent, but follow me and I'll be happy to connect you when I come off my fast.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, Melissa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Portia.
Such a joy. This has definitely been
this has been a highlight.
Listen, I just said that. It's been a highlight of my day. You just said it.
Seriously, thank you for this. I needed it. You don't know how much my soul needed this conversation with you, Portia. So thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you. And let's stay in touch and be sure to highlight all of the great things and amazing things that you guys are doing over at Aspire TV as well.
Yes. Thanks, Portia.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.